You shall not commit adultery. A commandment only for women? I don't think so. On this episode of Ancient Egypt and the Bible. Today, we are going to talk about the 7th and 8th commandments. In this, our part 4 of our 5-part series on the 10 commandments. The 7th commandment comes to us from Exodus 20:14, and it reads, "You shall not commit adultery." Now, we have to understand that the 10 commandments are coming out of an Egyptian context. So, when the children of Israel leave Egypt, they're given the 10 commandments at Mount Sinai. And several of these commandments are given in response to Egyptian culture. Now, as far as the 7th commandment is concerned, we have to realize that Egypt was a very promiscuous society. Marriage in ancient Egypt was a revolving door. People entered and exited marriage extremely casually. And it wasn't uncommon for people to have several marriages in a lifetime. Extramarital relations were also extremely common in ancient Egypt. So much of what is behind the 7th commandment is based upon the context of the children of Israel coming out of that promiscuous society. However, the commandment has not always been interpreted in the same way. One of the things we kind of have to realize about the 7th commandment was that during Second Temple Judaism and even into Rabbinic Judaism, the interpretation of the word na'af, which means adultery, was thought that this was a sin that could only be committed by women, particularly married women. It was pretty much agreed across the board at this sort of period of history that adultery was the act of a married woman having sex with someone who was not her husband. Ironically, sauce for the goose here was not sauce for the gander. So a married man that had marital relations with an unmarried woman was not considered by the Jewish sages to have broken this commandment. And I think this is one of the reasons why I am very, very cautious about taking Second Temple Judaism as sort of a blank interpretive, authoritative way of, say, interpreting the Bible. Because there are interpretations like this in Second Temple Judaism that just aren't copacetic. And I think this is most pointed out by Jesus Christ himself. Jesus Christ actually takes the 7th commandment and he expands upon it, like he did with, say, thou shalt not murder. He does the same thing with do not commit adultery. For example, in Mark 10, verses 11 and 12, quote, "And he said to them, whoever divorces his wife and marries another woman commits adultery against her. And if she herself divorces her husband and marries another man, she is committing adultery." So we have to understand how radical this is to the men that Jesus is speaking to. And he's here speaking essentially to Pharisees, to Sadducees, to essentially the learned men of Israel, who basically accepted the idea that sex outside of marriage was okay. It was okay just as long as you're a man. That's okay. But if you're a woman, oh no, that's adultery. Now, one of the things about this sin, too, seventh commandment, that Jesus, when he talks about this particular commandment, he not only raises he says he puts men on an equal playing field as women. So he's basically saying that Na'af doesn't just apply to women, it also applies to men. But he even raises the bar for men. In Matthew 5:27-28, he said, quote, "You have heard it said, 'You shall not commit adultery.' But I say to you that everyone who looks on a woman to lust for her has committed adultery with her already in his heart." So Jesus Christ here is saying that it is not just about, say, breaking the marital covenant. It's about lust as well. So Jesus Christ in the Sermon on the Mount is really raising the bar here on the seventh commandment, so that it is not just an act with one's body, it's an act with one's heart. And I think that really sort of gets to the core of the matter on the seventh commandment, which it's not about a physical act. It's about a broken relationship. And that is really the core of the seventh commandment, is that it's infidelity of the heart. It's infidelity in your relationships. This is why, when you go back to, say, the Torah and look at the Old Testament law, where it talks about idolatry, it's almost always connected with sins that are related to sex and relationships and that sort of thing. Because the breaking of the seventh commandment is a break in fidelity, a break in relationship, and idolatry is also a break in relationship and infidelity, but with God instead. So I think it is really, really important to understand why you see sexual sins paired with, say, sins of idolatry and polytheism in the Old Testament. Because in the eyes of ancient Israelite writers, they're so closely related that they're practically the same sort of sin. So this is what we see with the seventh commandment, is that it's really about broken relationship. In this particular case, broken relationship between human beings, a husband and his wife, or his future wife. Okay, so that covers the seventh commandment. Let's go on to the eighth commandment. And that is Exodus 20:15. Quote, "You shall not steal." Okay, now this one is pretty straightforward, but even so, it still has some things we can sort of flesh out here. Essentially, what it is you should not steal things that you are not entitled to. Now, we all know we all know it's wrong to steal someone's stuff. Stealing money, stealing someone's car, stealing someone's big screen TV. Everyone knows that's wrong. And you can even go up to an atheist. I mean, I've had this conversation where I've gone up to an atheist, and an atheist told me that he can be good without God. And I would say, well, what if I think it's good for me to steal your TV, your big screen TV? And I said, well, what basis would you tell me that's wrong? And the atheist will tell me, well, you're just being a jerk by stealing my big screen TV. And I go, well, yeah, but I'm a jerk with your big screen TV. So even atheists know that stealing someone's big screen TV, particularly their big screen TV, is wrong. But it's more than just stealing stuff. You can also steal other things too, like someone's reputation or qualifications. One of the things that really disturbed me when I went to seminary, and this is not a reflection on seminaries as much as it is a reflection on our culture and students, I saw a lot of students that cheated. The problem with cheating is it is not just lying, but it also steals from other students by dishonestly raising one's grades. In essence, you devalue or take away from other students who have honestly earned their grades by cheating on exams, papers, etc. Likewise, if you dishonestly earn a degree, and I put earn here in scare quotes, or buy a degree from a degree mill, you are falsifying your ability. This has the effect of stealing from that employer. That has the effect of stealing from your coworkers who might be earning more money because their qualifications are now suddenly worth more if false qualifications aren't in the pool of talent. Essentially, there's an old saying used by economists: bad currency drives out good. And it's basically saying that once, say, mints started producing coinage that was made out of steel and nickel, the silver coins were driven out of the market. People started hoarding them. They became more rare. And people stopped circulating silver coinage. Well, it happens in other things too. For example, if you introduce bad degrees into the marketplace, it drives out the good degrees. I had an employer once say, I bought my bachelor's degree from a degree mill. You earned yours at a 4-year college. Ha ha ha, I'm the smarter one because I didn't have to spend 4 years doing it. It devalued the degree I had rightfully earned, just because he could say he had a certificate. So, it does really do harm to steal credentials. As I said, it harms everybody. So, I also want to bring out one other aspect of this too, thou shalt not steal, which I think also needs to be looked at really harshly. And I want to shine a light on this because I've seen this as a problem, which is the resumes of pastors. One of the most discouraging things I ever had to do was once I had to volunteer. I volunteered to a church to review the resumes of pastors. And it was really discouraging how many of these pastors had false qualifications on their resume. Again, it's a kind of theft. It's stealing qualifications they didn't have to get a job they didn't deserve. And I think it does the body of Christ a disservice to have pastors that steal qualifications, because the fact is, if they're not showing fidelity towards what they bona fide earned, then they're going to show dishonesty and an infidelity towards the congregations that they serve. So, again, the 8th commandment is about not stealing, taking something that doesn't belong to you, whether it's cheating on your taxes, whether it's stealing from your boss at work, whether it is falsifying your qualifications. It's all theft. So anyway, that covers the 7th and 8th commandments. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you learned something. And I'll see you next time on Ancient Egypt and the Bible.